After the mobilization of Piedmont troops on the 9th of March 1859, Austria followed suit on the 9th of April and issued an ultimatum demanding the Sardinian demobilization. French troops arrived as well, and with the growing tensions, war ensued on the 26th of April as Austrians advanced in Italian territory with the aim of having a swift victory. The presence of French troops of the infamous Napoleon III led to victory, and the Allied troops marched in Lombardy. In an attempt to hold the lines, the two armies clashed at the Battle of Magenta, one of the biggest of the war. The French army, under Marshal François certain Canrobert, moved into Piedmont in the first massive military use of railways, a revolutionary logistic at that time. The Austrian forces counted on a swift victory over the weaker Sardinian army before French forces could arrive in Piedmont. However, Count Goulet, the commander of the Austrian troops in Lombardy, was very cautious and marched around the river Ticino in no specific direction until he crossed it to begin the offensive. Unfortunately for him, very heavy rains began to fall, which allowed the Piedmontese to flood the rice fields in front of his advance and slowed his army's march to a crawl. The Austrians, under Goulet, captured Novara on the 30th of April and Vercelli on the 2nd of May, and advanced on Turin from the 7th of May onward. The Franco-Sardinian move to strengthen the Alessandria and Po bridges around Casale Monferrato forced the Austrians to halt their advance on the 9th of May and to fall back on the 10th of May. Napoleon III left Paris on the 10th of May, landed at Genoa on the 12th of May, and arrived in Alessandria on the 14th of May. Ferenc Goulet, commanding the Austrian Second Army, deployed the 7th Corps along the Sesia, the 2 and the 3rd Corps at Mortara, the 8th Corps at Pavia, and 5th Corps between Pavia and Mortara. Goulet anticipated a Franco-Piedmontese offensive consisting of a flanking maneuver south of the Po. Marshal Achille Barraget de Hilliers' First Corps advanced from Voghera, while Garibaldi advanced from the north. Goulet assumed they were pressuring his flanks in a maneuver sur la derrière. Napoleon then took the command of the operations of the war, whose first major clash was the Battle of Montebello on the 20th of May, between the Austrian 9th Corps, led by Karl von Urban under the general command of Stadion, and Faury's division part of the French 1st Corps under Marshal de Hilliers. The Austrians retreated after 9 hours of combat when the Sardinian cavalry under de Sonnes arrived, which made Goulet even more cautious. On the 21st of May, Napoleon III received a telegram stating, "The Austrians have attacked, on the 20th, with approximately 15,000 men, the advanced posts of Marshal Barraget de Hilliers. They have been repulsed by Division Faury, which conducted itself admirably and liberated the village of Montebello, already famous." Disconcerted, Goulet deployed his corps further south. Meanwhile, in the north of Lombardy, the Italian volunteers of Giuseppe Garibaldi's Hunters of the Alps defeated the Austrians at Varese and Como, and the Piedmontese French landed 3,000 soldiers and conquered the islands of Lucino and Cres in Dalmatia. After the Piedmontese victory at Palestro, the 30th to the 31st of May 1859, the Austrians finally realized what was happening. Franz Count Goulet decided to retreat east, out of Piedmont and back across the Ticino into Lombardy. His aim was to defend Milan and prevent the Allies from advancing into the Austrian-controlled north of Italy. Goulet had available 68,000 men and 152 guns, composed of the 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 7th Corps. The French had about 50,000 men supported by 89 guns, while Manfredo Fanti added another 12,000. According to Frederick Schneid, General Camus with a division of the Garde Voltigeurs, followed by MacMahon's 2nd Corps and Fanti's 2nd Division, arrived at Turbigo, 5 miles northwest of Magenta, in an attempt to outflank Austrian positions, making the defense of the Naviglio Grande untenable. Camus' division crossed the Ticino by boat between 2 and 3 a.m. on the 4th of June. With the right bank secure, the French laid a pontoon bridge. Camus had crossed the Ticino during the Battle of Turbigo, followed by Montmartre. Camus, Espinasse and Montmartre crossed the canal, or bridges at Bernit Ticino and Boffalora sopra Ticino, placing them north of Magenta. At noon, Montmartre encountered elements of Liechtenstein's Second Corps. The Imperial Guard Corps made contact with the Austrians from Boffalora to Magenta. At 2 p.m., the Gardes crossed the canal with boats, establishing a bridgehead. Edward Clangallers informed Goulet of the French attack, who sent Schwarzenberg's Third Corps from Robeco sul Naviglio, threatening the French right flank. The confined nature of the country, a vast spread of orchards cut up by streams and irrigation canals, precluded elaborate maneuver. The Austrians turned every house into a miniature fortress. The brunt of the fighting was borne by 5,000 grenadiers of the French Imperial Guard, still mostly in their First Empire style of uniforms. Canrobert arrived in time to reinforce the Guard. From 3:30 through 5:30 p.m., Montmartre launched an attack against the Austrian 1st and 2nd Corps. By 6:30 p.m., the Austrians began a fighting withdrawal, while the French advanced into Magenta and beyond. By 10 p.m., the Austrian Second Army was withdrawing toward Abbiategrasso. In the aftermath of the battle, the Franco-Italian side suffered 4,585 casualties, out of which 707 killed, 3,223 wounded, and also 655 were reported missing. In contrast, the Austrian losses were colossal, with 1,386 dead, 4,358 wounded, and 4,500 missing. In total, there were 10,226 casualties, more than double of the Franco-Sardinian side. The elite corps of the early French Foreign Legion, created in 1831, also took part in this battle and participated in the war in help of the Italian unity. The defeat at the Battle of Magenta on the 5th of June caused Goulet to retreat east of the river Mincio to the Quadrilateral fortresses, where he was relieved of his post as commander by the Emperor Franz Joseph, who assumed the command himself. On the 8th of June 1859, the combined French-Italian army marched on Milan, taking it, and then a few days later, they also conquered Brescia. A dye producing the color magenta was discovered in 1859 and was named after this battle, as was the Boulevard de Magenta in Paris. The Battle of Magenta was not a particularly large battle, but it was a decisive victory for the Franco-Sardinian alliance. Patrice de Montmartre was created Duke of Magenta for his role in this battle, and would later go on to serve as President of the French Third Republic, created after the fall of Napoleon. After that, the French Sardinian armies moved slowly east in Austrian-controlled Italian territories with the goal of ending the war before the Prussian army could intervene on the side of the Austrians. During the Austrian retreat, Karl von Urban's division, made of 4,000 troops, was tasked to defend the rearguard of an impending enemy attack, while the rest of the army was retreating to Quadrilater. At this juncture, the infamous Garibaldi was relentlessly pursuing the retreating Austrian forces with a formidable contingent that had increased from 3,000 to around 12,000 volunteers, and reinforced by Piedmontese troops of the Brigade Voghera. Urban orchestrated a sequence of events designed to entice Garibaldi into a trap, with an attack on the Italian positions at Treponti, executed by elements of the Ruprecht Brigade. The Hunters of the Alps, eager to confront the challenge, took the bait and launched an assault en force against the Division Urban, strategically positioned in proximity to Costanedolo. Having successfully breached the initial Austrian lines of defense, The Italian forces soon found themselves entrapped, surrounded from 3 directions, and subjected to relentless, unwithering enemy fire. Von Urban had strategically positioned his central forces upon a plateau, in an impregnable fortified semicircular formation. As the Italian forces discovered themselves entrapped within this intricate web, von Urban executed a meticulously coordinated maneuver, ordering an attack in pincers by his right and left flanks. Confronted by this relentless onslaught and entrapped within the tactical scheme, the Italian forces were compelled to retreat in a disorderly rout, retracing their steps in a desperate effort to regain their initial positions. Despite Garibaldi's energetic efforts to quell the rout and reorganize the remnants of his forces for a renewed offensive, his second attack met again with failure, and he was forced to retreat to Brescia. Karl von Urban was appointed the following day as supreme commander over the fortress of Verona, the imperial headquarters. He had already been honored previously by the Emperor Franz Joseph for his performance in the Battle of Montebello. On the next day, Garibaldi received orders to redirect his forces to the north, effectively stopping his pursuit of the main Austrian army, which continued its retreat in an orderly way in the direction of the River Mincio and the Quadrilatero. The Battle of Treponti represents one of the only 2 victories by the Austrians during the Second Italian War of Independence, the other one being the Battle of San Salvatore. Both were won by Field Marshal Lieutenant Karl von Urban.